What's up everyone? For those of you that don't know me, I'm Wayne Exner from Ace Customs. We're here today to talk a bit about a product that I'm quite passionate about, which is EcuTek. And I'm here with Ross from RBTS Racing, who is our accredited and only tuner. He tunes all our cars, from road cars to street cars to race cars to anything and everything in between. So I'd like to start by introducing EcuTek, or where I got to know about EcuTek. Basically, when I started playing with cars like 100 years ago, I was first playing with stuff like Opels and that, which had very basic ECUs, only controlling fueling and stuff. But then got hold of a 2000 model Subaru Impreza WRX GC8 and did extensive mods, built motor, bigger turbo, all that type of stuff. And then it was time to tune the car, and I was introduced to the EcuTek platform. Well, once the car was tuned, it fascinated me how one could use the stock ECU, get access to it, tune the car to suit all the mods. There was no wiring, no modifications required, no cutting, joining or chipping or anything like that. And the car performed exceptionally well and made good power. We had two maps, low boost and high boost, and basically never ever had a problem with the car. And then when we started working with RBTS and brought them into the group, it was an opportunity for us to start doing EcuTek within the Ace Customs group, which was exciting for me. And being a big believer in using what we sell and proving that it works and eating your own dog food, as they say, I decided to use my Focus RS as a test bench, test platform for us to use the product, get used to it, see what its capabilities are. We got hold of the tuning suite for the car and we let Ross at it. Ross, do you want to give us your thoughts, how it was tuning the car? We know obviously you had tuned some cars previously, specifically Toyota 86s and BRZs with EcuTek, but now obviously tuning the RS. Give us your thoughts.
Very different platform. With EcuTek, having spoken to the guys overseas, obviously with Wayne getting the tuning suites via Ace Customs, you got a little bit more of a lifeline, so you could phone for technical support. And with the Ford, they gave us an example file and all the rest. I have tuned thousands and thousands of cars with various platforms of ECU stuff. So on the Subaru stuff and Toyotas, I did use EcuTek on there, but the brain structure of the ECU, EcuTek doesn't go away from that brain structure. So the fundamental foundation of the car is still developed by Subaru, Toyota, BMW, whoever it may be. So the Ford was a very different principle of tuning. At the end of the day, the engine needs timing and fueling, and it's controlled by various things. So a simple form of understanding an engine, doesn't matter what platform of tuning is. I always use my finger as an example. Too much fuel, the power falls. Too little fuel, the power falls. Too much timing will break an engine and the power will fall. Most probably because the pistons have broken and fallen out the sump. And too little will create too much thermal buildup. So it's a balance of finding that sweet spot for the engine with the mods. So a lot of the time when people say stage 1, stage 2 software, it's one of the things in the industry that's puzzling to me, because I find that the stage is created by the engine. You need to tune the engine to its potential. In other words, finding the peak with what the engine is giving you. In saying that though, with the Ford, the whole principle of tuning is very much the new technology and new way of tuning cars, where it's a strive to torque values, etc, etc, etc. So EcuTek was very friendly enough to give us an example map and tutorials to read through, and we applied all of that to this car. The nice thing that I like about EcuTek is, having used lots of other platforms of tuning, you'll be able to decipher a file and tune just the places that'll make the car perform better. The beautiful thing about the EcuTek is everything, and I mean everything, is being reverse engineered to the point that they actually get hoity-toity with it, and they show off that now they can go and reappropriate certain inputs and outputs, expand certain tables, change map sensors, rescale them, and all in a tuner format, which is easy for a guy like me to understand on the ground floor in the dyno. Then they've taken it to another level where you can have multiple maps that are created via inputs in the car. So for example, on the Subarus, you'd be able to push the cruise control activation, or you can actually choose to push with the ignition on the accelerator 4 times, activate something, then hold it down, and then you see a map representation on the dash with the rev counter. So the Ford is actually, I was quite surprised. I hadn't done the Fords before, so it was quite a learning curve, especially at that level where you can do so much. For example, the fault codes are like 2-3 pages of stuff that you can switch on and off. So I do a large amount of racing cars, so there's certain things that you don't want on a racing car, or rules according to the MSA that they don't want on a car, and you can delete those things, catalysts, whatever, to make it full race. The nice thing about it as well is, though, Wayne wanted, when he bought this suite for this car, he's got a large amount of very modified cars with standalone ECUs running fancy fuels, blah blah blah, which you can actually still do with that. I'll get to that point. But he wanted a car that he could get in and drive down to the shops, smooth, relatively light on fuel, no noises, and a nice tractable car. And you can still have that. Obviously, he hasn't modified the hardware to a level that, you know, you need to run ethanol all the time. In the development path on this car, I know we're going to use it as a platform. So now it's still got standard intercooler, standard turbo, all the rest, standard injection. But I know we're going to want to go to the ethanol route, try and make it that it keeps that peak power safely by keeping your charge temperatures lower, running higher octanes with ethanol, maybe possibly going a slightly bigger injector, etc., etc., etc. And from a tuner's point of view, there's no worries. Let's just do it, and then we tune it. You know, that will obviously open up a whole new avenue of needing to do X, Y, and Z, but it'll all be done, and you've got confidence that it'll work with this ECU platform that is designed by a small little company called Ford. You know, they know nothing about cars. Yeah. So yeah, that's why I love the product.
I'm very impressed with my interactions with Ecutec. It's a big company in the UK, and this morning, in fact, I logged a ticket. We're looking at tuning some race cars, and we had some questions around that, and all my interactions have been great. It's like Ross said, it's nice to have that lifeline and be able to contact the guys and ask questions, and you know, do we want to do things differently? Because and I know Ross, me personally, I don't like off-the-shelf tunes. All our tunes are custom designed, and the Ecutec allows us to tune each vehicle according to its mods, like a standalone, but using the factory ECU. As Ross mentioned, Ecutec is most definitely, it's a premium product, but then their suites are also focused at the premium sort of model vehicles, BMWs like M4s, F82, all of those, the Subarus, all the new Subarus, the Fords, the new Supra, the Yaris, the GR Yaris platform has just been the Nissan, so we've done a twin turbo 370Z with the same platform that we've also done NA 370s. So, you know, like you were saying, you did that 86 the other day, which was an NA car, and then they turboed it, and you immediately have access to boost control and all of that within the software already. You don't need any add-ons or anything. It's you turbo the car and it's there. So you've got that's a massive benefit. So in saying it's a premium product in comparison to other software mapping or whatever you want to call it, flash tuning, it is more expensive, but then you get the benefit of the R&D that's happened overseas and the access to the support and stuff. So yeah, it's a multi-use product, road car, whatever, race car, and like Ross said with my RS, when I bought it, I wanted a car that I could get into and drive to a meeting or go and see a client, or just go drive it on a Friday and enjoy it. I didn't want something like my Evo or some of my other cars, which are highly modified with cams, and it's, you know, it's difficult in traffic with a heavy clutch, a copper clutch. You know, this car I can still get in and tootle down to the shops and
drive to Cape Town,
or drive to Cape Town, yeah, and the fuel consumption's still good. Or if I want to shire it, as Ross would say, it goes like stink. Power delivery is very nice, the tune is great, the cold start's still perfect, I don't battle to start it. You know, we've just had no issues. It's just been excellent, which is also, I mean, I have to say, a testament to your tuning capability, you know, knowing and doing all of that. But the car it's basically like it came from the factory. I just have a lot more power. And also when we first put EcuTek on the car, I had the mount tune intake, and that was pretty much it. The car was stock. Since then, we've added a downpipe and decat, and we retuned the car, and we've also tuned it on NF adrenaline. And I mean the power gains from the downpipe, which was also done internally by us. The mid-range power is it's insane.
It's tire shredding.
You actually don't realize how quick the car is. For such a quiet car that's got relatively comfortable suspension, and the power the car makes is really amazing. It's making now with 514 Newton meters of torque.
And on a platform that I didn't really think we were going to gain much more, because it is an RS already. To the point that I actually thought it had a tune in it already. Because we didn't know the history of the car. But I mean, when we put the stock ROM in, which is also nice with the EcuTek, you start from scratch. So you can put the ROM right back to stock. It wasn't modified.
Which is nice also, obviously, if you do want to sell your car one day and you want to put it back to stock, you can remove the EcuTek, remove the mods, all of that. But what's also cool, and I sort of mentioned this before, I mean, this is our development platform. So now I want to discuss with Ross, and we haven't really discussed it, but do I go bigger intercooler to manage heat? We want to look at maybe going ethanol, so we can do, Ross can explain all of that, but there is a development path. We'll probably change the exhaust, but I want to maintain the valve system on the exhaust in sport mode. So there is a development path, maybe even eventually hybrid turbo, but we don't have to change anything. Ross just has to retune. He's got full access to all everything you need to tune the car, regardless of the mods we do.
You're 100% right. The only thing that you can't just wire in a flex fuel sensor or an ethanol content sensor. There are certain platforms that come from the factory with ethanol sensors in. There you would just start tuning. So if we had to go ethanol on this car, for example, you would need to get an ethanol content gauge or kit. That comes with an auxiliary output voltage, which then we would hijack an input from whichever the list, because you can choose. It's not just one input that you can choose from. There's a list that you can choose and put in that auxiliary voltage, and then that will give me a linear scale of ethanol content. So we could actually even detune the car a little bit for 95 for when the missus drives the car.
No, she'll want it on high boost.
We'll detune it though. And then in 10% increments, that as you start adding the ethanol, the boost will go up linearly, the fueling will be correct, and the timing will be correct for that octane fuel. It's infinite what you can do with it in mechanical and electrical. When you do, say, like an 86 or the 370Zs, they were normally aspirated. They didn't come with boost controls and turbos and stuff like that. But then EcuTek's got a solution for that as well. So like on the Subarus, you could, for example, take out the tumble valves, use that input as your flex fuel input, and then it would need to give out another output, because there's inputs and outputs, to wire up the external 3-port max solenoid, 4-port max solenoid to do boost. Let's say you don't want to buy a flex fuel sensor. Okay, so then there's an alternative to that as well. You have got the ability on this car for 4 maps. So then you would have to do a little bit more thinking, and then now you're more in charge of it. But you could have map 1 as a 95 octane map. Then you need to make sure you've got 95 in the car. If you go and then you select map 4, and that's for clean ethanol, you're going to have maracas. And big parts climbing out the exhaust. But there's always a way around it. So if your budget doesn't allow that, you could facilitate with the multiple map functions. And in those maps have no launch control. But in map 2, when you've got ethanol, you want launch control, because now you're halfway wanting to race. Throttle blips, stuff like that is all built in.
Even the launch control, you can adjust your RPMs and all that type of stuff. So I think the key takeaway there really is that, without any wiring or changes or anything like that, you're getting full access to the ECU that was engineered for the vehicle, that has all the safety parameters and stuff, which you can obviously as the tuner choose to keep depending on what parameters they are, and then adjust, adapt, add if you're adding boost or whatever, all within the EcuTek package on the stock ECU, and still keep it a daily driver and have your aircon and whatever and all of that. and that for me is really cool. Plus have the support from overseas. The product for me is just, I really like it.
It's like a no-brainer.
Yeah. You as a customer or someone who has a car now and you're considering Ecutec, obviously the thing to understand is that Ecutec doesn't work on any and every car. They have a defined list of vehicles and platforms that it works with and that they have tuning suites for. And before we can tune a car, we have to acquire that suite.
Yeah.
And
it's not cheap either.
It isn't, but we've seen the benefits of those, and from a business perspective for me and from a tuning perspective for you, I think we agree the spend is worth it. So we're constantly, because we like the product and the platform so much, we're constantly expanding our tuning suite, what tuning suites we have. We currently have the 370Z Nissan. Obviously, we have the EcoBoost for the RS, and I think it does the Focus as well.
And Mustangs.
The Mustang EcoBoost as well, the 2.3. We've got the Toyota 86. Keep an eye out for a video coming out on a boosted 86 that was previously tuned as NA, which we mentioned earlier. So if you're interested in inquiring about Ecutec, you can visit their Ecutec website. Just Google Ecutec. They've got a link for supported vehicles, and you'll be able to see all the platforms. But by all means, if you're interested in the platform, knowing more, drop us an email, info@acecustoms.co.za, or a WhatsApp on our business WhatsApp number 010-593-4911, and one of us will get back to you. Obviously, if there's advanced technical questions, we'll get Ross involved because he's the professor, and we'll see if we can help you with an Ecutec solution, and then obviously we can advise costs and stuff. Something that's important just to understand on how the purchasing of the product works, and that is we buy the tuning suite. That is a cost for us internally, but then as the owner of the vehicle, you purchase through us flash points, which is basically like a license to put Ecutec on your vehicle, and then that lives with the vehicle. So if you have Ecutec on your car and we have the tuning suite, you can bring the car to us and we can use our tuning suite with your license to retune or update the tune or whatever. And then obviously there's the charge for the actual tuning time, the dyno time, Ross's time, setting up the car and getting the config and the tune done. But by all means, drop us a WhatsApp, a mail, rather don't phone because we're always in the workshop, and we'll let you know what we can help with. Ecutec are constantly expanding their range of tuning suites. They've recently just released the GR Yaris platform, and they're constantly updating and evolving. So it's an exciting platform and product to be involved with.
100%.